Welcome to those in the gallery and those joining us online for what is this calendar year's last council meeting, being the 30th of June 2025. Tonight we've got 4 policies, 1 plan and 2 planning permits to deal with, plus some confidential business. Councillor Hall has volunteered to do the acknowledgement of country.
Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first peoples of the country. We also acknowledge them as traditional owners and custodians across various lands. We pay our respect to their ancestors, elders, children and young people. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and recognise their continuous connections to lands, waters, communities across the country.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Agenda item 2 is apologies, request for leave of absence and request to attend by electronic means. I'd like to note the apology of our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cowan, who unfortunately cannot be here tonight with us. Agenda item 3 is the Good Governance Pledge. Councillor Seymour has offered to read that.
Wodonga councillors have committed to undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the municipal community, abide by the Model Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Model Councillor Code of Conduct, and faithfully and impartially carry out and exercise the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in the Office of Councillor under the Local Government Act 2020 and any other act to the best of their skill and judgment.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Agenda item 4 is declaration by councils of any conflict of interest. Are there any? If I could just note, item 9.1 refers to MAB insurance, of which I am a board director of, but as advised by our governance officer, there is no conflict of interest relating to that item. Agenda item 5 is confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. There is a recommendation before us. Are there any questions on that before we go to the recommendation? If not, could I have a mover, please? Councillor Knight, a seconder. Councillor Hall. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Agenda item 6 is question time. There are no questions. Agenda item 7, petitions. There are no petitions. Agenda item 8, delegates report, which there are none, which now leads us into reports for determination. If I could just bring, so agenda item 9.1, the adoption of the Road Management Plan 2025 to 2029. There's an officer recommendation that the Road Management Plan 25 to 29 as attached be adopted. We have a mover for that. Councillor Knight, a seconder. Councillor Aldrich. Just before we proceed, if I could just hold this motion before just. And Councillor Coulty, just before we're just starting on agenda item 9.1, just requesting whether you have any conflicts of interest in relation to the board papers.
No, I don't. I apologise to the family for being late, but I don't have it.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Knight, as the mover, would you like to speak to agenda item 9.1? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd just like to thank the submitters that put in their feedback in regards to the road management plan. There were some questions asked by councillors, thanks to that, and answered by officers to our satisfaction. But yeah, I'm just pretty happy to move it as is.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aldrich.
Nothing further to add.
Any other comments, Councillor Hall?
Yeah, I'll just say a little bit. The draft Road Management Plan 25-29 was endorsed for public exhibition at the April 2025 council meeting. Council received 4 submissions through Make Hills Wodonga, and there were 5 relevant comments posted on social media. I too would like to thank all those who provided submissions and feedback. and it's always appreciated and taken into consideration. So while the council officers concluded that the feedback received has been valuable, it is and direct relevant. It's direct relevance to the actual road management plan 2025-26 is limited, being that the submissions were more generalist in nature and would be better addressed by other means. Officers' advice is that the road management plan is a legislated document under the Road Management Act 2004 with specific purpose for setting out council's inspection frequencies, maintenance standards and response timeframes for road and footpath infrastructure. The road management plan is not intended to serve as a capital works or investment strategy, nor does it determine upgrade priorities. These matters sit outside the scope of the road management plan and are addressed through our broader asset planning framework. The road management plan provides council with a system to proactively manage the municipal roads and related infrastructure assets for the community, which is a good thing in my opinion. If the results improve safety, liability and systems and processes, I think, we could, it's good to have a document that provides a guideline and a framework for our council staff to work to. We can monitor this over time and I look to improvements where needed. So with this, I'll be supporting the plan being adopted tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other comments from councillors? Any other councillors like to speak to it? Councillor Knight, all good. It's a case I'm going to put the motion to councillors. All those in favour? Councillor Knight, Seymour, Aldridge, or Quilty and Vogel unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 9.2 is fraud and corruption prevention and management policy. There is a recommendation there before us, an officer recommendation. We have a mover for that, Councillor Knight.
Mine's slightly different, but
yes.
I'd like to move that the fraud and corruption prevention and management policy be adopted with the inclusion of the procurement policy, guidelines and procedures in the related policies, plans and procedures section.
Thank you very much, Councillor Knight. Could I have a seconder for that? Thank you very much, Councillor Hall. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to it?
This policy obviously is a necessity. The attachment that we're trying to add, we are adding, is to tie it into where we believe that it would probably be most needed and make sure all the referencing is there as required. That's about all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to it as a seconder?
Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to thank those who took the time out to provide the council with their submissions and feedback. This policy has also been out for public exhibition and has now come up for a decision on its adoption to council. The Local Government Act 1989 and 2020 requires council to develop and maintain adequate internal control systems. And an effective fraud and corruption control framework, of which this policy is an important element, is widely recognised as a critical element of such systems. Section 54(2)(c) of the Act requires the Audit and Risk Committee to monitor and provide advice on risk management and fraud protection systems and controls. The Audit and Risk Committee endorses the policy as one component to address fraud prevention. The Audit and Risk Committee include independent members who receive regular reporting on fraud and corruption risks, controls and incidents, such providing an additional layer of oversight and assurance. High-risk areas of councils, for example, procurement, planning, staff, councillor gifts, credit card authority and usage, and conflicts of interest disclosure. It is important to have a policy that provides the public and staff with detailed information around the council's processes, procedures and protections. The policy includes a section on public interest disclosures, which I think is important, a reference to procedures and protections offered to whistleblowers. The section applies to persons, including staff, residents and suppliers. Public interest disclosure procedures provide greater detail on how to make disclosure during, including anonymously, and the protections that are offered. I'll be supporting this policy for adoption tonight. The fraud prevention policy is an important document and is vital to support the continual improvement of council's internal framework and prevention of fraud and corruption, and is reviewed regularly for compliance and effectiveness. And it's as I said, it's an important document, and I think it should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Other councillors? Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank the submitter, particularly the one who has provided very detailed feedback and outlined a few points of interest that, in their opinion, are not covered by the policy. I can see, and it's always really nice to see when community members do so much work and review our documents and policies in detail. So thank you very much for that. I'm happy with the office response and comment provided, in particular that we do look and are planning to review a number of policies, such as council gifts, benefits and hospitality, grants and community funding, and sponsorship, etc. And I applaud Councillor Knight for including the procurement part. I think it's a very important addition, and I'm happy to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Any other councillors? If I could just make some comments, noting that this has been reviewed and recommended by the Audit and Risk Committee and also reviewed by Maddox. But I'd like to a special shout out to the submitter, Grant Davis, who highlighted what I thought were some very genuine gaps in the policy, including reference to procurement in particular. And so just a shout out to him for his suggestions there. And I absolutely do support the alternate motion moved by Councillor Knight, and look forward also to the review of the procurement policy and procedures. So I'll be supporting this tonight. Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, Councillor Knight, would you like a right reply?
Thank you.
All good. If I could put the motion then to councillors. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 9.3 is the advocacy policy, which has come up to council before, and also briefings, and has been workshopped. There's a recommendation from officers before us. Could I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Seymour, and a seconder. Councillor Knight. Councillor Seymour, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, just very quickly, I think it's really important that we can have this document set out for things that need the advocacy of mayor or as it comes up, rather than waiting for the meetings to come up. So it's a matter of efficiency, and yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to it as a seconder?
I'd just be reading off the discussion, which is the draft council plan 2025-29 has a strategic objective of advocacy and partnering, and delivered through two key strategies: to advocate to stakeholders and decision makers on key community issues while proactively seeking partnerships with government, business and community organisations; and two, to collaborate with key partners and agencies to proactively plan for emergencies and ensure coordinated preparedness and recovery efforts. I think this is what is expected of us by a community. I think it's something that we need to do. So,
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Any other councillors like to speak to this agenda item? Councillor Hall, thank you.
Okay, to be honest, I don't think we need a policy on advocacy. I believe being elected as a councillor to represent our community has advocacy as a given in representing our community's wants and needs. In the past, we've put together a document on council's advocacy priorities, to which has been updated regularly or as needed. Councillors can actively and collectively work on advocacy strategies and submissions, communications and statements, and so they should. It should be part of their job description. I believe, as I said before, that it is a given that our council leaders speak and act on behalf of the community to influence, raise awareness or seek support from politicians or various tiers of government policymakers and others. This is a complete and it should be a given expectation from our community that they would expect us, their leaders and councillors, to advocate on behalf of them where it's been identified we need to do that advocacy. I believe it's part of our job description as a councillor, and it's what I personally put my hand up to do. I don't believe we actually need a policy to tell us to do that as part of our job as a council. But having said that, I don't know if I'm necessarily against having the policy if it is considered to be helpful to others. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Courtney, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I would like to thank the staff for putting and cleaning up the policy for us. I agree with Councillor Hall that advocacy is a very important part of council work, especially given that we have so many issues that affect the life of our community but are completely out of our hands. Hospital, to name but a few, and transport, and well, many others. I won't be listing them here. I think it's not a bad idea to have a policy, even if it's not detailed. It outlines a few things that we might want to have structures and may want to just adjust according to the situation or the advocacy project. What I do not approve and do not support in the current policy is having a lobbyist. Engaging a lobbyist may be considered on a case-by-case basis. However, adding a lobbyist as a general practice and delegating the power to the CEO to hire lobbyists for a project of under 10,000 is not necessary. And that is not or anything to do with the performance of our CEO. It's just my personal belief that as councillors we can advocate, but should we need to, and we have enough internal resources and our own resources as councillors. However, should we ever need a lobbyist, I think it needs to be discussed by case basis and on the merit of cost versus benefit to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any other councillors? If not, I'd like to also speak to this. Councillors will note that last week we passed the council plan 25-29, and earlier this year we passed a resolution adopting our key advocacy initiatives. In our council plan, we have a number of key priorities that involve either partnering or advocacy, and will most likely only be achieved through advocacy for funding or partnerships with federal, state government agencies. Council's role, to Councillor Hall's point, is more than just the 3 R's of local government. And this is evidenced by previous council's role in advocating for more reliable and regular rail services on the North East Railway line. It's also evidenced by the advocacy by the last council and current council for a new hospital and a new site. And it's evidenced by the advocacy of this council against the collection of the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund by local government that was subject of urgent business item last week's budget led by Councillor Hall. These three examples highlight the need of our council to speak up on behalf of our community for the things that are important to them and the things that sometimes are outside our normal service delivery or core business. The adoption of this policy, I believe, will provide the guidance and guardrails to the councils, CEO and the executive leadership team when advocating for our community, and hence I'll be supporting this motion. Councillor Seymour, would you like a word of reply at all?
No, I think everybody said it. I just want to reiterate that it probably, this policy recognises that the council's approach must be agile and be able to, you know, respond in a really time efficient way. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seymour. We'll put the motion to council. So all those in favour of the motion, Councillor Knight, Councillor Seymour, Councillor Aldridge, Councillor Goble, Councillor Hall. Those against, Councillor Quilty. Thank you very much. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.4 is the council interaction with developers, lobbyists and submitters policy. We have a recommendation provided by staff before us. Do I have a mover for that recommendation or an alternative?
Well, I don't want to always be taking this. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Knight, we'll accept it on this occasion. So is it a mover as recommended or a mover?
Move as recommended.
Thank you.
For the purpose of debate, I will second.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aldridge, seconder. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to the recommended?
Yeah, we've had a fair bit of discussion about the recommendation and the actual policy itself and how it adopts the wording, interactions, and who is a developer, who is a lobbyist, and who is a submitter. We are I'm under the impression that we can review this policy at any stage, so we can see how it goes, and our definitions of said developers, lobbyists, submitters, and what an interaction is considered is also going to be looked at as well. But I think for our community, they need to know that we're making fair and just decisions based on what's put in front of us. And I think this is a good start to doing that. So that's why I've moved this motion, and I will be supporting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aldridge.
Yes, so recognising that council needs to be committed to accountability and transparency with people who we communicate with. My concern with this particular policy is that it does put up a bit of a brick wall against the community being able to access us in the sense of we need to question whether the interaction is with a developer, lobbyist, or, you know, a submitter, as Councillor Knight suggested, working out where each person lies. And also the idea of an officer, a council officer, having to attend an interaction with a developer or a lobbyist or a submitter, it creates an extra burden on council resources, I think, as well. And my thing is, I just want the community to be able to come to us as councillors and feel free to discuss their views with us, whether you're a community member or a developer. There's two sides to a lot of stories. I do note, though, as Councillor Knight has said, this policy, we can review it at any time. So based on that, I'm happy to support the recommendation to see how it goes, to give it a chance. But I do want my concerns noted about the community having access to councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I acknowledge Councillor Aldrich's concerns, and it probably I take those on board as well. There are some good aspects in this policy in recognising the problems that exist with councils and councillors with their interactions with developers, lobbyists and submitters. There have been numerous high-profile cases with councils that have been investigated by IBAC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, like the KC Council corruption case with property developers that found corruption between property developers and councillors. And it's a very real issue for councils, and there's a need for councils to address this corruption. Our council is committed to open accountability and transparency. Councillors are expected to uphold the high standards of professionalism, integrity and transparency in relation to contact with developers, lobbyists and submitters. And this should be absolutely the case. And our community should expect no less. So, we've got issues with conflicts of interest or perceived conflicts of interest is required to be recorded consistently. This policy is adopting a new approach in dealing with these issues at council. I believe the policy will certainly tighten up council and councillors' interactions and engagement with developers and lobbyists and submitters, but it will still require a huge element of honesty and transparency and integrity of each individual councillor and staff member. There will be a strong reliance on this as an individual. So I will be supporting this in good faith tonight. As spoken by the other councillors, if there's any unforeseen issues or problems that could arise out of this policy, we can bring it back and review it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Corsi, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I had for and against going for this policy. I will probably end up supporting it tonight. I agree that it is a good idea to tighten up our interactions as councillors with developers, lobbyists and submitters. I think having a policy in place is helpful in guiding us and in providing a good solid foundation for interaction with third parties. I don't think that it is possible or necessary to have a policy that will cover any possible and imaginable aspect of such interaction. And I would like to remind councillors and community that on day one of our service, we took an oath, and doing anything that is not of highest integrity would be breaching that oath. Besides, before we start every meeting, we take a pledge of good governance that also promises each other and the community to make the decisions within good governance framework and in good faith. And obviously, there is a certain element of trust from the community for when we got voted in the position, which is also a privilege. And hopefully, this privilege is not just the joy, but also and should be a bit of a restraint on us all, remembering that we speak not for ourselves or for our benefit, but for many residents, and their personal decisions are in our hands. So I think while it is important to have the policy, and I will support the policy, I think it's not just the policy that holds us to account, it's many other things. And again, I would like to thank Grant Davis, not just one, but a number of policies that he's looked through and provided his feedback. It's great. And I hope to get a lot of feedback from the community of such detail on many policies that we have. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Coulton. Any other councillors?
I was just going to concur with Councillor Quilty just on that good governance that we uphold like when we are sworn in about our conduct and our interactions with the public. So while we shouldn't need it, it's there. to just remind us, I suppose, and have a framework to work within. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Any other councillors before I go to Councillor Knight? Actually, I'll just make some comments too. Thank you, Councillor Courtney, for the shout out to Grant Davis, who again provided a very thoughtful and insightful submission, of which has had the impact of having made a number of amendments to the draft policy, given some very valid points made by Mr Davis. Like a number of other councillors, I too share some concerns regarding the practicality of elements of the policy. And I have concerns that there may be some unintended consequences, but like Councillor Hall used the phrase, likely to accept it in good faith. I think that was a good way of putting it. Understanding that we'll be looking at the possibility of reviewing this based on our experience, but I too will be supporting this tonight. Councillor Knight.
I think that this discussion and just about every councillor has had a input into this shows the community how much we have discussed this policy, and the fact that we are accepting or moving this policy forward for our community so they have faith in us. But we've all basically stated the same thing. We want it known that the community can always approach us and talk to us in regards to any issues and stuff they have. But obviously this is to try and do put that good faith into everything else that's there as well in our dealings with anybody else. So and to not bring Wodonga into disrepute, or the council into disrepute, or councillors into disrepute. So yeah, I think everybody is really on board with this. And as once again Councillor Hall said, good faith. We'll see how it runs, and hopefully the community still has every access to us, and that is our intention, not to stop the community having access to it.
Good, thank you. I'll put the motion to councillors. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now leads us to item 9.5, the public art policy. We have a recommendation before us for the mover. Mover for as recommended. Or alternative for what's recommended. I would, but as mayor I can't. So, Councillor Knight.
Can't help myself. It's just the way it always works. I move the recommendation as recommended.
Thank you very much. Have a second one. Councillor Seymour, thank you. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes. Well, public art is a interesting, diverse field, I suppose, where people have different opinions on what's art, what's not art, and whether we need it or whether we don't. Having a policy in place allows not just us, but the public, developers and the community to be able to view where we want to go with some of these things as well. It's the livability of Wodonga. It's those little things that make the community yours, whether it be, the dragon flies as we come into Wodonga, or it's the, Peace Park, those little bits and pieces that we can do. So I think having a policy at least gives us the guidelines and the rails that we can work from. Once again, all these policies can be reviewed at any stage. So if it doesn't work quite the way we think it should, then we'll review it again.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor Seymour, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, I just probably would do a little bit of reading just for the public's benefit. But Wodonga's public art program is a key component in supporting citywide objectives, including economic development, cultural tourism, infrastructure development, placemaking and community development. Art has the power to inspire and transform, stimulate the local economy, provide opportunities for artists and creative people, and contribute to a shared sense of identity. And I just think it's a really important aspect for Wodonga, and I see beautiful artworks around, and I think it creates a really beautiful place alongside a lot of other things, and I think it's important to have a policy and guardrails, as Councillor Knight has said, around that.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. I would open the floor to other councillors. Councillor Aldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's interesting whenever you open up a conversation about the arts. I, full disclosure, I'm a massive supporter of the arts. I'm involved in the arts community in this city. And reading the community feedback, it's always such a divisive topic. You have people who absolutely love and support the arts, and then you have people who don't think ratepayer money should be spent on the arts. But I think the important thing with this policy is to know it's going to provide a clear strategic framework for the establishment of consistent and effective processes for funding, commissioning, maintenance, preservation, which are in line with our budget and council plan. And it's really important, I think, to acknowledge that art does add livability to the city. It really does beautify, our pockets of towns where our little suburbs of Wodonga, so to speak, where we live. And I think having this policy in place as well will enable us to, to be able to look at grants and things outside of ratepayer funding as well as part of this policy. So for these reasons, I'll be supporting this policy tonight, this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Councillor Crosby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Aldridge, I would like to respectfully remind you, you forget to mention at least one more group of people, and they are those who absolutely love and support art, but do not want to spend public money on supporting art. Supporting art can be done through many means. Personal philanthropy, attending the shows or art exhibitions, and many other ways to hold and also together to hold GoFundMe campaigns, etc., to support any art project. I think that, and I thank all our community members for the submissions. I think when we talk about public art policy, we need to take a holistic view of it. And I think councillors who have spoken have made really good points. We are not just talking about funding the arts. We are talking about preservation of the existing art, maintenance, and allowing space for art, dealing with unsolicited forms of but modern or underground kinds of art. Art takes many forms, and it's not always solicited, but sometimes it's also appreciated years down the track. So I think it is important to have a public art policy, and I would have supported having a policy that covers every aspect of existence of public art to my satisfaction. And I think the current policy that we have actually covers a lot of aspects, but I'm not entirely happy with the proposal we suggest to fund arts. We are in a bit of a tight budget situation, so I think emphasis should be put onto advocacy, help, and help to and connect to any philanthropic organizations, or help to give people ideas how to gather public fundings or partnerships or anything else, but not spending too much public money on it. So while I do like art, and while I do think and agree with Councillor Aldridge that art does add livability, and that many forms of art get appreciated much later than they're created, for some particular aspects of this policy prevent me from voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any other councillors? Councillor Hall?
Yes, I'd like to also thank the submitters for the submission and feedback received, to which there were 4 through Make Wodonga Yours platform and 1 by a Facebook post. All feedback is appreciated. And as I mentioned at the council meeting, when this policy came up for approval to go for public exhibition some months ago, I didn't support this policy. And I haven't changed my position, although I certainly taken on board all feedback received. There was a bit of a split with the feedback received with this policy, and while some good aspects of the policy, there are some good aspects with the policy, but there's others I don't support, and it seems to be reflected in the feedback, the position I feel about it as well. Public art maintenance for our community artwork as part of the annual budget makes sense, but it can add up depending on how much artwork needs upgrading or maintenance. But having it as a requirement of council's major projects and new developments, providing art features for the part of the city planning developments, I sort of don't support, and I think maybe this could be supported through other council mechanisms. I believe that any proposal to come up to council should be determined individually, and I don't support any annual allowance in the budget for it going forward, unless it's come up through the submission process beforehand. I do like good art, but I'm not a supporter of art for the art's sake. I think it can be overdone. Subtle, well-designed art can be great, and this is why I do believe it needs to be assessed individually and decided, the project come up, and as councillors we have a look at the costing and make the decision around that as an individual project. So I won't be supporting the policy tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Maybe some comments from me. I will be supporting this policy for the reasons articulated by a number of our councillors tonight. I do, however, see a shortfall in the policy regarding funding. So the policy does refer to grant opportunities, commercial sponsorships, leasing opportunities, and the community cultural development budget. I note some of our residential developments, like White Box Rise, have some magnificent bits of public art, some sculptures by Ben Gilbert and others, which I think really do enhance that as a residential development. Recently, last week, in fact, when the Deputy Mayor, myself and the CEO were in Canberra, had the benefit of visiting Gugong, which is an emerging residential development in Canberra, where there were a number of examples of some public art, which I'm taking were funded by the developer. So the provocation really is regarding this shortfall in the policy with funding. And I understand Director Schultz that will be investigating the potential for developer contributions to public art in future residential and potentially commercial developments. So I'd like that to be dealt with in the future, noting that this policy doesn't come up for review until 2029, but the extent to which that may inform a reassessment of this policy, I certainly encourage. I'm going to move to Councillor Knight, who was the mover of the motion. Would you like a right to reply?
Once again, I'd just like to thank everybody for contributing to the debate or the discussion in regards to this policy. As people have noted, the submissions were split pretty evenly down the middle there of for and against art, but and as Mayor Goble pointed out, the developer contributions being looked at in a later stage, as suggested by one of the submitters, is a good idea. we're all, I think, on the same page that how it's funded and how it lasts, and and how it affects the rates and the rate payers is paramount to each and every one of us. So I thank everybody for it, plus or minus, or yes or no's, but it's really good to see everybody discuss these things around the table, especially for our community to see us not always agree, but see that we can work through things.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. If I can put the motion to councillors. All those in favour? Councillor Knight, Seymour, Aldridge, Global. Those against? Councillor Crooksey and Councillor Hall. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.6 is the planning permit 90/2024 Whenby Grange stage 11 subdivision. There is a recommendation from officers before us. Could I have a mover? Some hesitancy, councillors. This tonight. Or an alternate.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Seconded the purpose.
Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to me?
This is a bit of it's been an issue. Look, it came up to our last council, and we recommended that each planning application come at each stage come up to council for a decision. So this is why this has come up. Generally, it can be addressed through delegation, but it's an important decision, and we decided that we thought it best the council has the opportunity to give their nod on any planning application. Now, it's within the thing with this is we're going within a planning a zone where it was once landfill. It's been thoroughly investigated and has been found to be safe, but this will be going up to the 250 metre zone where it is required for a permit. I think the land it's within the 500 metres, so close to the landfill, which has ceased operation in 2005. So it's still being monitored, but it is being said to be safe, and that's why it's a bit of an issue, because there's people, community do get concerned when these issues come up. The EPA has guidelines on where the buffer zone should be around landfills, and this does meet the requirements. So under the the environmental audit, it was completed by a environmental auditor. The following this, officers sought to get independent advice, and it was stated that it met the requirements. So the recommendation by the council is that the permit should be granted with the 12 lots in the general residential zone of Castle Creek Road, Whenby Grange, subject to conditions in the attachment 3. As I said, it's one of these things that's hard to make a decision on. We've got to probably accept the advice of our council officers and the assessments that have been done. And so with that, I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Long-winded.
Councillor Aldridge is the seconder. Would you like to speak to it? Or
So while I'm slightly reassured by the fact that there has been some independent work done into looking into the gas deposits underneath this, my biggest issue with this recommendation is transparency to the community, in the sense that not everybody has lived in Wodonga a long time, and a lot of people don't know that the land out there was previously used as a landfill. And, and I understand that it comes down to the due diligence of the purchaser to read through the caveats and the conditions of sales, that they will know that it is previously, they're building within a buffer zone of a landfill site. That's my major concern, is that the average person coming to Wodonga is not going to know the history of the land. They buy it in good faith. They see all the beautiful, sexy pictures of the houses and the development. And then someone tells them after the fact that they're building on a landfill site. And again, I acknowledge that, solicitors and conveyancers, it's up to them to communicate this information. But, I just have a lot of hesitancy about building in this buffer zone, and what comes next. Like, how close are we going to be getting? When do we say enough? But again, I'm reassured by the fact that the EPA have said everything's okay. I think we are going to have to take the advice of the officers on this. We're going to have to agree to the recommendation. But I just genuinely hope that the community, are aware and they do see what they're buying into.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Any other councillors? Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. It's not being built on the landfill site. It's been built in the buffer zone. The landfill itself is 250 metres further on from where the edge of it is. The reason the buffer zone's there are for the methane and gases that can sometimes travel through some of the underground waterways and earths and stuff like that, which we have testing, and the EPA puts testing in places. It's not an unknown in major cities to build on landfill sites themselves and directly over it. There has been some issues in the most recent terms, but this is well and truly away from that 250 metres. And I think the conditions that have been put into it for things like membranes on the building, the testing and the experts for doing all their excavating, etc., by council, and using our experts and independent experts, I think the community can feel safe in the knowledge that we are not allowing them to do something that would be detrimental or dangerous or would lose value over time. And as is also on the map of figure point 3, there's already a number of houses in that area, or lots in that area, so it's not unusual, and its precedent has obviously already been set that some have been built there. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Any other? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I share Councillor Aldridge's concerns about the transparency of this development to people who do not necessarily come from around here. We have a large chunk of population who come from Melbourne or other places, bigger places, for their retirement or other lifestyle benefits, or for having small children and raising a family, and any potential environmental dangers from being so close to the landfill. We really don't want to affect them, and it's one thing if somebody buys a property and then hears from other people that they are close to the landfill. It's bad enough, but even worse if something actually happens to the people, and it will be on our hands. The report is reasonably reassuring. The testing and the extent of the buffer zone plan is reasonably reassuring. Honestly, I don't know. It's up to us to make this decision, and we need to be brave to say yes or to say no. As Councillor Knight has mentioned, there are already people living around there, and hopefully people who are buying will do due diligence and make the decisions for themselves. And if they think that it is too close for them, then they won't be buying it, and will let the free market make the decision. Look, I don't know. I don't know what to do. But thank you for the debate.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Seymour.
I initially had the same concerns as Councillor Aldridge. I'm just being transparent, but I suppose I am thinking when you buy a house, most people go through a conveyancer, and it's up to, that's where you put your faith, and understanding that this, you know, section 173 or whatever it is, that it will highlight those. And, you know, you get a building inspection and you get a pest inspection, you would find the same thing on under that section 173. And given that there was an independent auditor, EPA approved, we would have council making this decision tonight would have to have sounded. You would have to go. Yeah, because any refusal to approve this you would have a VCAT submission. So unless it goes against our planning scheme or something like that, I'm happy with all the reports and the recommendations. So
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Maybe just some wrapping up comments, noting that this is coming to council as on the basis of the previous council's resolution on the 16th of September. As Councillor Knight and Councillor Cordy pointed out, there are already homes in the 500-metre buffer. In 2020, an environmental audit was obtained by a licensed environmental auditor, and council, following that, engaged further independent advice, likewise from an accredited EPA environmental auditor. A peer review of the planning conditions on the permit were obtained and confirmed that the proposed conditions were appropriate in terms of reflecting and implementing the recommendations of the 2020 audit. To Councillor Aldridge and Councillor Cordy's point regarding transparency and awareness of newcomers to Wodonga, and to Councillor Seymour's point, any purchaser would be disclosed through a section 173 on the title, be disclosed in the contract of sale under section 32, and any new build would have planning permits that are part of planning approval for a building, residential building on the site, would affect the relevant land. And to Councillor Seymour's point, to object to this, we would need solid planning basis for doing so, which I'm not seeing. So on that basis, I'm likely to be voting for this resolution. The mover was Councillor Hall. Would you like a write a reply there, Councillor Hall?
Yeah, I'll just like to add too again that as Councillor Knight said, his planning application is not on the landfill site, but is within the 500-metre buffer zone. And the landfill ceased operation in 2005, so it's 20 years ago. You know, there have been, as our mayor said, there have been independent environmental audit done, and the assessment and recommendation recommended that the permit conditions relating to the landfill gas risk align with current industry standards and best practice for assessing planning proposals within a landfill buffer. So, you know, we do have to take that on board. We wouldn't have, if we refuse this application, it would most definitely probably go to VCAT, and if we don't think sound planning reasons to reject it, the chances of council winning that decision would be predictably minor. Will probably be not probably. So as we've all said, we're going to go with the recommendation officers in the officers report, and trust the advice given.
Thank you, Councillor Hall, for your right of reply. I'm going to put the motion to councillors. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 9.7 is also a planning permit matter. Permit 175-2024-73 on 75 Charles Street, Wodonga, 6 dwellings and 6 lot subdivision. Officers have provided a recommendation. Could I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Aldridge, seconder. Councillor Seymour, was that you?
Yes, Councillor Seymour. What's Councillor
It
Seymour?
was Councillor Seymour.
Yes, most definitely was.
Councillor Aldridge, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, so the proposed development complies with relevant requirements of the Wodonga planning scheme and addresses the planning concerns raised by the objections we received. Again, same kind of situation where it meets all planning rules. So we could again see ourselves in VCAT if we don't pass this recommendation tonight. But I do acknowledge the submissions that we receive, and I do have particular sensitivity to people that may have their backyards overlooked or a shadow now in their backyard at a particular time of day that they weren't used to. But it does acknowledge that it does fall within all county guidelines.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Councillor Seymour, would you like to speak to or reserve your right? Thank you. Okay, we'll open up to other councillors to speak to the motion. Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Yeah, look, I had a good look at this, because we've got some feedback that wasn't supportive of the permit, but I don't believe the comments, the received feedback would provide good prospects for this being overturned by VCAT. There is a strong push by the state government for density-driven projects. I'm not that greatly supportive of, but in this case, I think it meets all the requirements for a planning application and permit. So I think it would be hard for us to take this to VCAT and win if we were to support it. As the development is set, most of the, on one side it's the football oval and then the other side there are residential houses. So the majority of the property would be, it's not encroaching anyone's northerly aspect. With the res code, I think the setbacks are appropriate to not overlook the other dwellings around it. So it's got a lot going for it in respect to meeting those requirements. As Councillor Aldridge said, that it does face north, so I don't see it as an issue for the neighbouring property in this map. With the townhouse, there's adequate parking, 4 with double garage and 2 with a singles with the smaller properties. The neighbourhood character, which is street impact, I don't think there's an issue with that. There are similar townhouses like that in streets nearby. The garbage bin issue, which was brought up, I don't see that as problematic as well. There's 12 garbage bins on garbage collection day, 6 on either side of the entrance into the property would be fine. So having said that, there is really no strong reasons to not support this planning application. So to give it a permit, so I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other councillors like to speak to it? Councillor Seymour, you reserved your right. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Hall for going through some of those. I just want to address the objections, not one by one, but kind of in a general sense that there was increased traffic as one. The proposed driveway is insufficient for multiple vehicles. There are a number of objections, but all of them were in fact, the development provides all required on-site car parking, including 10 resident spaces and 2 visitor spaces, exceeding the planning scheme's requirement of 1 visitor. The driveway is insufficient for multi-vehicle use. The proposed 5-metre wide crossover is sufficient to accommodate the simultaneous passage of 2 standard vehicles. I could go on, but the objections we've got sufficient, I suppose, answers to them. So this is probably a really lovely example of a planning permit. So for that reason, I will be supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. I'm going to go to Councillor Aldridge as the mover for your right of reply. Nothing further to add? If it's the case, I'm going to put the motion to councillors. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Which now leads us to agenda item 10, reports for noting, and we have a report here from the Victorian Electoral Commission report for the 2024 Wodonga City Council elections. The report there is for noting. Would anyone like to comment? Or before we do that, can I have a move for the recommendation to note it? Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Second, go to would you like to speak to it? It's just for a noting.
It is just for a noting, so no, I don't need to speak to it.
Good. We're going to put the motion to councillors, unless there's someone who would like to speak to it. No. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 11 is the reports for information. Record of council meetings. Any comments? It's for information only. If not, I'll move to 11.2, which is the decisions register. Any questions of officers in relation to decisions register? If not, I will then move to agenda item 12, notice of the motion. There are none. Agenda item 13 is general business, and just noting, as earlier, CEO, myself and the Deputy Mayor attended the Alba conference, and we'll have the report coming to the July 28th meeting to talk about outcomes and what we learned there at that conference, which was a very good conference. Is there any other general business? Councillor Aldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am excited to announce that I have agreed to be a contestant at Country Hope's upcoming event On Key for Kids, representing Wodonga Council. Country Hope is a local charity dedicated to providing family-centred support services to country children diagnosed with cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. Country Hope offers practical, financial and emotional assistance to affected families. Their services aim to alleviate the challenges faced by families across the border during difficult times. On Key for Kids is an annual charity fundraising event hosted by Country Hope, and this event showcases local talent from the Wodonga region, pairing emerging performers with experienced mentors to deliver captivating musical performances. So yes, I will be singing on stage. Brace yourselves. Funds raised through On Key for Kids directly support Country Hope's mission, ensuring continued assistance for families in need. And I'm looking forward to raising funds, and I hope to get the support of my fellow councillors at fundraising events and have the support of the organisation, Matt, as a whole. And I just want to acknowledge as well that all funds raised from this event stay local. It's local funds only. What date is that? It is in October.
Well, congratulations.
Please send us.
Sorry.
Please send us a calendar.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, as the council who's observed, the council is singing in the kitchen.
It'll be fine. It's for a good cause. It's all for a good cause. It's for a great cause. And I'm so happy and honoured to be asked to take part.
Well done.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Any other items in the general business? If not, I'll move to agenda item 14, which is urgent business, and there is none. Which now leads us then into confidential business. There's a recommendation that the meeting be closed. Members of the public, in order to consider matters pursuant to section 3, subsection 1 of the Local Government Act 2020. And the chamber meeting be adjourned for 2 minutes to allow the public to leave the chamber. Thank you for attending. Those in the chamber, thank you very much. And could I have a mover? Councillor Aldridge and a second to Councillor Hall. All those in favour? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Bo.
Did you want to bring the gallery back?
Thank you very much for those joining us online. We're at agenda item 17.2, which is the adoption of the in-camera recommendations. The recommendation before us is that the recommendations of the closed meeting of council be adopted. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hall, second to Councillor Quilty. All those in favour, carried unanimously, which now leads us to the public release of information. And CEO, I'll have you read the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to item 15.2, GloBird Energy proposed revision to existing exclusivity agreement and a new exclusivity agreement. The public component of the recommendation is that 1, the council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to amend the current exclusivity deed in agreement with GloBird Energy, which deals with the exclusive rights to 0.74 hectares of Lot 7 on PS 823624 off Baxter Whelan Road, Barnawartha North, adjacent to the power station. And that 2, the council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to enter into the new exclusivity deed with GloBird Energy or a related energy for the exclusive rights to land parcels D and E as described within this report, and that an exclusivity fee commensurate with the current fee be negotiated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. If I could call on Acting Director Simone Hogg to speak to 15.3, public recommendation.
In regards to 15.3, that the minutes of the CEO Employment and Remuneration Advisory Committee meeting held on June 4, 2025 be received and noted.
Thank you very much. Which now leads us to the close of the meeting, agenda item 17.4. And if I could declare the meeting closed at precisely 7:33 p.m. Thank you for those joining us online and those who joined us earlier in the chamber. Thank you, councillors and staff. Thank you very much.